The first meal I eat on a regular basis are stuffed sweet potatoes. You can use a baked sweet potato as the base for almost any meal. And I usually make them for an easy, hearty dinner, but it's also great for a post-workout meal because it has both protein and complex carbs to fuel your body. I usually add some sort of bean or lentil for protein, and then a combination of veggies and condiments. One of my favorite combinations are these za'atar-flavored chickpeas. I pan fry some cooked chickpeas. You can use canned ones, or I usually make them in my Instant Pot. And then I toss the chickpeas in a homemade za'atar seasoning, which is a Middle Eastern spice mixture made of fresh thyme, sumac, and sesame seeds. The chickpeas get crispy and a little blistered when they're pan fried, which makes the texture amazing. You'll never want to go back to plain old canned beans. Then I top the potatoes with some pickled cabbage and a drizzle of tahini. One of the kinds, if you visit my fridge, is cashew cream. It's like vegan liquid gold. It's so rich and adds a little indulgence to every meal, but it's made mostly with just cashews and a few other ingredients, so it's 100% wholesome. I toss it with hot pasta or noodles, and depending on how I'm feeling and what's in my pantry, I might use plain fettuccine or linguine, or if I want something a little healthier, I'll use whole wheat pasta or a lentil or bean-based pasta. When I'm done cooking the pasta, I reserve just a little bit of the cooking water, and then I toss the hot pasta with the cashew cream, and if it's too thick, I add a little bit of that cooking water to thin it out. I usually add some sort of protein. For something easy that doesn't require extra cooking, I use shelled organic edamame. Then I top it with some final flavoring agents like juicy cherry tomatoes, fragrant basil, and crunchy walnuts and hemp seeds. The next meal I make almost every single week, at least in the colder months, is a lentil or chickpea-based curry. I almost always use my Instant Pot to make these because it makes it easier and more hands-off. I usually rotate between Indian and Thai curries because they're so flavorful, and I always have the spices for those on hand. I've included a few of my favorite curry recipes in the description box below, including a few recipes that don't require an Instant Pot. The key to a good curry is to be generous with the spices and to use a combination of whole and ground spices. I've made a few of my Indian curry recipes for my mom, and she has approved, so I think that's a good sign. Another meal I make every single week is a big old grain bowl. For this bowl I used farro, but to keep it gluten-free you can use brown rice, quinoa, millet, barley, or wild rice. And this is where meal prep comes in super handy. I almost always have some sort of cooked grain in my fridge that I can use because I just toss my grains with some water in the Instant Pot, and when I come back the grains are already cooked. And I almost always have some sort of cooked vegetable in my fridge as well. In the colder months, it might be roasted root vegetables, and in the warmer months, some raw or lightly steamed vegetables. Today I'm using spiralized butternut squash noodles that have been lightly cooked. For a little sweetness and chewiness, I add a handful of dried fruit like apricot, and to add more flavor and freshness, I always add a handful of chopped herbs such as parsley and basil or cilantro and dill. And for a nice texture contrast and healthy fats, I add some raw or toasted nuts and seeds. Finally, for the dressing, sometimes I just use extra virgin olive oil and balsamic vinegar, But if you want to keep it oil-free, I make a tahini dressing using tahini, apple cider vinegar, salt, pepper, and warm water to thin it out. This last meal is a breakfast recipe, and it's one that both I and my partner eat every single week. I make creamy fruit-sweetened oats, both on the stovetop and in the Instant Pot. Both versions are easy, but with the Instant Pot you don't even have to know how to cook because you just toss all of the ingredients in there and let the Instant Pot do its magic. I also make oatmeal on the stove, especially if I'm using rolled oats. And while plain oatmeal can be really boring, this recipe is far from it. For one thing, my oatmeal is super creamy because I always cook it in plant-based milk instead of water. It makes it taste really indulgent instead of just like a health food. I also sweeten my oats naturally with fruit, so it satisfies my sweet tooth without added sugar. My favorite fruit sweeteners are dates and bananas. The topping options are endless, but I usually add some sort of berry sauce or berry jam that I keep in the fridge. I simply heat frozen berries on the stove until they get nice and saucy. And you can add a little sweetener or lemon juice if you like, and if you want to turn it into a chia jam, you can add some chia seeds at the end to thicken it up. Some of the other toppings I like to add to my oats are nuts and toasted coconut. They have healthy fats, and they also add a nice crunchy contrasting texture to the smooth creamy oatmeal. And for a little bit of a treat, I sometimes add a little chocolate.